Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me come speak today. I was on my way out here and I started thinking about, because as soon as I got asked to do this, I was thinking, what are going to be my angles, And I'm not a PowerPoint person, so don't worry about that. I don't give handouts and we don't follow along. I don't do that. What I'm going to do is speak from my own experience that I've had throughout my life with dealing with drugs in different levels of my life, right? And what I've seen, what opportunities can do for people that are drug addicted and how important it is for them to have opportunities to come out of and going through recovery. I'm going to talk from being an ex-drug dealer in my community, from that experience. I'm going to talk from being a black man, experiencing the drug epidemics in my community. And I'm also going to talk from being a community advocate now and the effects of drugs in my community and how opportunities are a key component to dealing with issues that young people deal with on a daily basis that struggle through the drug epidemic. I left home at an early age. I left home at about 13, 14 years old, turning 14. And when I left home, I got into the streets, and so the streets became what raised me. And so while I was in the streets, of course, I gravitated to how to make money. So I fell into that dope game. This was right around the time, right before the crack epidemic really got big in our community. And so one of the things I was thinking about this morning as I was brushing my teeth, I was thinking about the fact that the opiate epidemic is not new. This is nothing new. This didn't just start and come out of nowhere. It had hit our community a long time ago. And we've been dealing with the opiate epidemic. Heroin was huge in our community. Right before the crack scene took that over, heroin was huge in our community. So when I got into the drug game and I got out here, one of the first experiences I had, and you guys bear with me because I'm going to bounce around and put on your seatbelts because I'm going to take you on this journey with me. One of the experiences I had when I was a young age, I was about 15 or so, when I really started getting into selling heavier drugs than marijuana. And there was this group of men in our community that had came into our city from another city, and they were selling heroin and cocaine. And I had connected with them, and I was buying. They were my connect, right? This is where I was getting my stuff from. But I didn't know nothing about heroin really, but as I was growing up, I would see my friends' parents who had those issues. And we would see needles, syringes, we would see them shooting up. We would see that, but I didn't have no clue. I was young, so I really didn't know what that was. And as I got a little older and realized what that was, I was like, I don't want nothing to do with that. I don't like needles. I don't want nothing to do with that, right? And so when I started getting in the dope game and I connected with these men not only sold heroin, but they used heroin. So now I was getting a firsthand experience of being around this group of men on a daily basis, seeing their habit and seeing them going through what they were going through with this opiate habit. I remember one day I was at their apartment and they just had all kind of drugs, piled up, and I would just walk in and see people just, nodding in and out and all the stuff that you guys pretty much in this room pretty much know how the effects of opiates have on people, right? And it was just a sickening scene to me. Needles, syringes, and it just made me cringe. And I'm a young guy, I'm probably 15 around then, and I'm going, this is just nasty and gross to me, right? And then the guy comes up to me with this plate and he says, hey, you want to try some of this? And I looked at him like, dude, I don't want to look like that. No, I don't want to touch that, right? I want nothing to do with that. Right, I'll stick to what I've been doing. I've been selling this stuff right here. I'm going to sell this. I'm not touching that. And so that experience right there made me look at heroin as a problem in my community at a very early age. I didn't look at the other drugs as a problem because that's where I was making my money from. But I looked at heroin as a problem. And this was something that really kind of, I brought this back to my memory this morning, right? I'm telling you this story because that same group of brothers, they were brothers from another state, and they were hustlers, and they came from another state. And that group of brothers, as time went on, and I started maturing and growing and started seeing them go through their stuff, and we kind of separated a little bit, and I was moving on and doing my thing, but I would run into them every once in a while. And one of the things that I remembered was 3 of them, there was about 4 or 5 brothers. I know 3 of them that I would run into started cleaning their lives up. The very first thing that I remembered was they got jobs. Construction, trades. I ran into them, hard hats and vests and boots and shit. I'm like, what do you guys got jobs? Really? They're like, yeah, man, we're trying to clean up, we're going to recovery. It's like, yeah, we got jobs. And I was like, wow. And so I was thinking about that this morning. And then years later, I kept seeing them. They were doing better and better and better. And I was like, that's what they needed, an opportunity, right? Because when all you know is selling drugs and making money the fast way, and then you start using drugs, right, you fall into this dark place, into this dark hole. So I started thinking about myself, and I said, I didn't see any opportunities for me. I didn't think about going to get a job. I just instantly seen a way to make money and survive. And as in that survival, I had a hunger to be successful in that survival mode. So I wanted to be successful. I wanted to work hard at whatever I was doing. I was an athlete, and I was a good athlete, and I worked hard at being a good athlete. So I took that same mentality into the drug game. And while I was in the drug game with that same mentality, I worked my butt off to work my way up the food chain in the drug game. And I did a great job at doing that. And I thought about, what if somebody exposed me to opportunities? What if I had opportunities to get some kind of career or a job? Those things were probably out there for me, but not in my community and not who I was surrounded with, right? I seen my job as selling drugs because that's what everybody around me did that was successful. Opportunities are huge when you're dealing with anything, any part, from recovery to drug dealing, all the way down the path. If somebody has an opportunity and they were taught to take that same view and vision of being in the streets, hustling and surviving, and put it in a structured environment, and we're taught this is what you can do and you can be successful at it. A lot of people out here have a lot of skills to be very successful in a lot of different venues. A lot of different job opportunities could be given to people that have that attitude, right? So because there was really no services out there when the crack epidemic hit, it kind of just hit our community so hard, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you got to realize the crack epidemic hit so hard, and it was so devastating to our community, and nobody thought about giving services about it. Nobody was trying to talk about recovery. It was punish them. Go to prison, go to jail. You get caught with this, you get caught with a couple little rocks, you're going to jail. You're getting a case. You get caught selling, you're going to jail, you're getting a case. You're a victim of drug abuse, you're going to jail. You're getting a case. Nobody thought about, maybe this is an epidemic. We need to help them. No, it was an epidemic, but we wanted to lock them up. Let's get them off the street. That's because crack had a color to it. Crack had a color connected to it. Crack had a culture connected to it. You see what I'm saying? So when crack had a culture connected to it, that culture had a whole different approach to it. The system approached that color connected to crack in a different way. I'm saying that to say the black man that grew up in my community didn't see or know anything about services for people. That didn't exist. It was jail, jail, jail. So we operated not only out of people being addicted, but also out of fear every day, on top of that, and also out of hopelessness every day, and also not being connected to anything else outside of that world that was created for us to be in, the crack world. In our community that I grew up in, the people that I had as clients, the people that I dealt with on a regular basis for years, the ones that I seen finally start kicking habits are the ones I seen that got jobs. I started thinking about that too. I started thinking of faces and names and families and people I dealt with, people that were my clients at an early age and while I was growing up. And I started realizing that I remember people that were getting jobs, they would still come around, but they wouldn't come around as much, right? You know, you wait till payday to go out and party. So I'm going to come. But before that, it was a daily thing. So those daily clients started coming back, falling back to seeing them every 2 weeks when they got paid, and they do a little, but they got to go to work the next day. So, you know what I mean? So throughout the week, they weren't getting high. There was some discipline that came along with that. So I started thinking about that process and going, wow, I think what happened was people started having hope that they could be better and do something with their lives. So in the process of them trying to move out of their addiction, they found a place where I can go to work, I can make money, I can get my own apartment, I can buy a car. I like this. I still have an addiction, but my addiction got less of a burden on my life, right? It was still there, but it wasn't a daily existence of being hooked on drugs. And then slowly, that person would decide, I got to recover. I got to kick this habit. But it took for something to spur that off. Jobs and opportunities. Now, nobody was coming and knocking on nobody's door back in those days saying, we got services for you. There was no organizations like this, and there was no people that had big meetings like this. Nothing was happening but the fact that law enforcement was saying, we got to lock these people up, and everybody in the community agreed. Everybody in different areas and people, all the whole mainstream media blitz and all that, they're monsters, they're killers. The whole gang infestation came and all this stuff. And all of a sudden it was like crack and gangs, hand in hand. But who was thinking about the victims of that? It really wasn't happening. So I look at what we're dealing with today from a different view. I had an opportunity to make $1,000 a day easily. And when I was going through that process and I was making that money, I was like, I didn't never think, not one time I was hurting my community. And I thought, what if there was some kind of way somebody could have told me and showed me the damage that I was actually doing to my community for monetary gain, right? If I had somebody that would talk to me and showed me, hey, look what you're doing to these people. It was, you guys are crackheads, and I'm making money off you because I need to survive every day. This is what it was about, right? If I would have seen somebody helping them and seeing them get services and seeing them get opportunities, maybe that would have planted a seed in me. Maybe if I was, you know what I mean? I mean, it took years and years later of me going through this of my life of being a drug dealer to finally start seeing people trying to help themselves. Because the people started kind of growing up a little bit and growing out of it a little bit, but most of the people ended up in and out of prison. A lot of them are dead. I mean, like, just devastation on top of devastation. Now we're here at this stage. I'm a black man and I watch the epidemic that's happening right now with the opiates. And now this drug don't have no color on it. It affects everybody. Our whole community, all communities have been affected by this. There was a color on crack, and you see how we dealt with that. We didn't deal with that well at all. But now there's no color. Now this epidemic has become something that we all have to come together and fight for. So I want you to know how I feel as a black man that went through all those years and all those stages of my life being a dealer in the drug game, coming out of that, getting my life in the right track, and then going and educating myself, and then going back and looking back on how we were treated as black and brown people through that process. And then I look at where we're at today and see this drug with no color on it. Now white kids and suburban kids, suburban families, you know what I'm saying? Hey, it doesn't matter what color you are, what economic structure you come from, what your education background is, you are being affected by this one way or another. Now everybody's up at arms. Now there's organization after organization after organization coming together. There's grants and systems and all these stuff being put together to serve all these different people because it's epidemic. But when we were facing an epidemic years ago, there was none of that there. So then that kind of pokes me a little bit, you know? It pokes me a little bit because I'm going, well, why weren't we up in arms back then? Maybe we wouldn't be here now. I am one of the people in my community that was known for selling drugs for a long time, and now since I changed my life and I do what I do now, I'm known for being an advocate for the same community. I was able to turn my life around and change my life, and I'm talking from a drug dealer perspective, and I've went out and I've grabbed other people who were addicted. I've literally grabbed some of the moms and the grandmas and aunties and dads of some of the kids that we work with and young adults that we work with that I used to sell dope for, too. And were addicted. And I've helped them get opportunities, helped them get services. A lot of them are still in a bad place because it affected their whole entire existence. Then all of a sudden, the next generation has to pay for that. And the next generation. So when I'm sitting across the table with a 16-year-old little girl, and we're sitting with the defense attorney and her probation officer, and she's facing 5 years in prison for a drive-by or an armed robbery, and we're talking, and we're having a conversation, because I'm there as an advocate for this young lady, to try to keep her out of prison and get her on the right track, keep her in the community, because we have services and we have opportunities. And I start seeing and hearing her talk about her dad or her mom or her auntie, and in my head I'm like, oh, wow, that's the same people. And I remember they did get stuck on heroin for a while. I remember when they started using heroin and got away from crack. I remember watching them. I remember seeing them in the gutter. You know what I mean? Seeing them look bad, I watched their decline. And I'm going through this in my head. I'm like, now look what's been passed down. Look what's happened. This thing is not just something that affects an individual that's going through recovery. This thing affects generations. And right now, where we're at today with this opiate epidemic and these young people, if we don't get a grip on this right now, the next generation is going to be even worse. There was a judgment last month or a few weeks ago. I can't remember. It might have been a few weeks ago. And I seen where some big pharma company that got found guilty for selling all these opioids to millions of people in the community, you know, in our country. And thousands of people have died. And they got found guilty, right? You guys, I'm sure most of you guys in this room know about it. I see some heads shaking. And when they got found guilty, I was looking at like, so what's going to happen? What's going to happen if this big multi-billion-dollar company that just got found guilty for selling opiates in our communities around our country, killing hundreds of thousands of people, what's going to happen to them? They got found guilty. They got a fine. They got a fine. You got fined a few $1 billion when you've made hundreds and hundreds of billions? They got fined, and they still get to operate. I have friends that are still in prison doing 30 and 40 years for selling dope on the corner. What are we supposed to do to fight back against that? Because I'm sure if you're here, you got to be upset and angry about that, or else you probably wouldn't be in this room. How do we fight back against big pharma? How do we fight back against this epidemic that has been started for people to benefit? So just me being that little low-life drug dealer out in the streets, selling my dope, surviving every day, could have went to prison anytime. By the grace of God, I didn't. But I watched everybody around me either die or go to prison. And now we're here looking at a company worth billions of dollars killing hundreds of thousands of people. And nobody gets handcuffed. Nobody sees a jail cell. What kind of sick society have we become? How do we accept that? And how do we fight back against that? Right? It ain't going to happen in this room having meetings. I tell you that. It's going to happen when we get outside these doors and we go start grabbing these young people. We start grabbing these adults. We start grabbing them, and we provide services and opportunities for them to be able to have employment, housing, wraparound services, consistent therapy. We have to be consistent with what we do. We can't just tell somebody, here's a phone number, here's a card, go call these people and talk to them. We're so comfortable in just saying, yeah, we provide services. Yeah, go over and meet with so-and-so. They're going to talk to you. Set up an appointment. I found out that really don't work. You have to build relationship with people. People have to trust you. People have to want to know that what you're saying is going to help them. They've probably been through so many different services and failed many times. Most of these young people don't even want to go. They don't even believe you when you tell them go over there and get some. They're not going to go get help. They're in your face now. And at the same time, how do they get in your face? You got to go out there and get them. You can't just sit behind your desk and wait for somebody to walk in. We'll never win that way. Because big pharma's arms reach all over this country. Nobody's sitting behind a desk just waiting. Right? They've addicted so many people. Now the people that are addicted are just, you can walk in any doctor's office. You can walk to any corner. Their reach is everywhere. These young people, there's a situation at the school, one of the schools in Seattle the other day. A couple of young ladies are selling these pills, these opiates, something new called AAA or something like that. I don't know nothing about it. I just heard about it. It's my first time. Something called AAA. I haven't ever heard of this before, but it has a lot of some opiates in it. And I guess they're selling these pills, and one of the young 14-year-old little girls bought some of these pills from her, and she OD'd. She survived. She didn't die. But when she OD'd, what happened was the young people in the school knew that the girls sold this little girl this drug, so they were upset. So the school was saying, well, we're investigating. We're investigating the situation, right? We're investigating the situation. So the young lady that's in my program who was looking at 3 years in prison, and we worked with her for about last year or so, got her 2 jobs. She has 2 jobs. She's doing great. She's going to school. She's doing one. She's on track to graduate. She wants to go to college. We're going to work on getting her to college, all this stuff. And so when we were going to court, we were able to divert her out of the court system and keep her free in the community and get her probation. Well, we're in the courtroom. I'm going to tell you how stand up this young lady is. This little girl's life is screwed up. Her mom has an opiate addiction. Her dad been in prison most of his life, in and out. She's just been an angry young lady. And we're sitting in the courtroom. Her mom's sitting on the other side of the defense attorney, and she looked at her mom in the courtroom and said, Mom, I used to hate you. That's why I never came home. That's why I stayed out in the streets. But going through this process that was supposed to be a negative for my life, and working with these guys and learning about love and respecting myself and loving myself, I love you now, Mom. That's why I come home. Even though you have your problems. Right? Back to the school. The girl goes to this school. She came back to school and the girls were still there. She was so upset, she went to the staff and said, why are these girls still in our school? They need to be out. The school said, we're investigating. We're doing an investigation. We can't just kick them out. We don't have no proof, right? So she went off on the staff. What's wrong with you people? Why don't you protect these kids? She's going berserk. They kicked her out the school and expelled her because she was trying to stand up. When our babies are ready to fight back, something ain't right. What are we doing? Our kids want to fight back. This little girl is on her way to being great. She's an awesome kid. So we're going to support her through every step of her life. I want to be at her high school graduation. I'm going to be at her college graduation, but I want her to be an advocate for this. She said, I want to fight against these drugs that my friends are taking, these young people. She wants to be somebody that can advocate for people. This is what she said after this incident. And I think she said that because she don't feel like no adults are doing a damn thing. How do we fight back? What do we do? This is a war. This is a war. This is not just a war for us to go say, yeah, we're doing something. No, this is a war to say I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm fighting this fight every day. The way that we're fighting this fight is through the criminal justice system. We're a diversion program, a felony diversion program. I decided to start this program a few years ago because there was no diversion programs to help young people that were facing Class A, Class B, and Class C felonies. If you commit a felony, you go to jail or you go through the system, period. There's a lot of misdemeanor diversion programs for people that's stealing out of Safeway or get caught with a dime bag, right? But there was no felony diversion program. So we started a felony diversion program. In starting this felony diversion program, over the last few years, it's grown all these other arms. So we're not just a felony diversion program. But in doing this work, I get the most hardest, our organization is known for taking hardcore cases, drive-by shootings, manslaughters. I even worked on a couple of murder cases, right? Gun possessions, robbery 1s, robbery 2s, burglaries, assault 1s, assault 2s. We take those. Those are the ones we want. Because those are not throwaway kids. But when you look at the parents and the guardians and the history of where they come from, if it isn't from foster care and you're really connected to the people that raised this kid from it, opiates, drugs are huge with the parents and the guardians. So what we're doing is sitting back and seeing the effects of what happens when you see a community that has been rattled. And when I say a community now, I'm not talking about just my community. I'm talking about all our communities have been rattled, whether we believe it or not. My kid went to Eastside Catholic High School. One of my sons went to Eastside Catholic High School. I did that on purpose to get him out of the hood. So he grew up in the hood, Rainier Valley. He grew up in the hood, right in the Rainier Beach area his whole life. Played sports there. I've coached every sport. Everybody calls me Coach Dom because I've been coaching sports for like 26 years. I just stopped coaching sports a couple years ago. I'm telling you this story because my son went to Eastside Catholic, and I sent him there to get away from this craziness. I was like, I've already made one mistake and let one of my sons stay in the hood and go to school. 3.8 honor roll student all through middle school, and got to high school his freshman year and right into the gangs. And that was one of the hardest times in my life and his. So I said, well, I lost one son. My older son went there and graduated #1 in the class, valedictorian, went to Howard University, was great. So I figured the next son, he'll do great. Didn't work out that way. So I said, I'm not going to lose another son. I'm not going to have another son out here in the streets and have to fight that battle again. So I sent him to Eastside Catholic to get away from all the craziness and the drugs and the gangs and all that stuff, right? Now, this ain't a knock on Eastside Catholic. I just want you to understand it's a 50-minute drive from where we live. And I literally got up every morning and drove him all the way there and picked him up every day and drove him back. That's how serious I was about getting him out of the mess. As he got a little older in the school, he started telling me, Dad, there's so many drugs in this school. There's so many drugs. He's like, my son's never done thank God, he's never done any drugs, has never drank any alcohol. He's in college now. He's a sophomore in college right now, playing football. But I want you to know that this kid, but he's still one of the most popular kids, goes to all the parties, girls and all that stuff. He's that dude, but he said, Dad, I've never seen so many drugs before in my life. He grew up in the hood. His dad was a drug dealer. He'd been around that stuff his whole life. He said, these kids are taking so many pills and snorting so much cocaine. He said, it's crazy, Dad. The parties, they just got a table full of, and I'm like, wow. And I took you away from that. I didn't want you to be around that. Thank God you had a scholarship. I wasn't paying for it. But but I'm saying, I started helping the football team at the school, training some of the athletes and being at the school a lot. I had a lot to do with the football program, and I started getting to know some of the kids, and I was just flabbergasted at the influence that these parents are very wealthy. They're very wealthy. They're in a good spot. They got all kind of parents own a lot of companies and been lawyers and dentists and doctors and all this stuff. And I'm going, how does this connect? Like, how does these parents are in this position and have all this influence and money and power, but then their kids are hooked on dope? A few of the kids had some OD issues at school. They had ACARs come a few times and rush them to the hospital, pump their stomach. Kids are coming to school drunk, and like it was crazy. But there's 3 schools on that street, all good prominent schools, and all the schools were having the same problems. And I'm going, in my head, it's a crazy connection because I'm used to the effects of drugs being generational, like I just talked about, you know? So then I started thinking, oh, my problem is I fooled myself into thinking that these people don't have no drug issues because they're rich. They're successful. How could they have drugs in their house? How could they have opiates and cocaine? And how could they be alcoholics? They're rich. They're rich and they're white and they live way out here. There's no way. But I had to put the connection together. And when I put it together, it blew my mind like, wow, we're in a period where this doesn't have no color on it. I grew up the whole time feeling like this was a black thing. This is a hood thing. But we've gotten to the stage now, it don't matter where you live or who you are or how successful you are, and your children are affected. So many of these kids, after I started doing a little more digging and talking, because I'm nosy and I want to know. When I want to know something, I go on a mission and I'm going to find out. And I started talking to some of the kids because the kids trust me. They know I'm not going to go snitch on them or tell them about, I just want to know, how can I help? What's going on? Most of them were getting the drugs from their parents, digging in their stashes, going in their cabinets like most of you already know, right? Then all of a sudden the heroin hit. Because when the kids' parents realized my kid has been going in my pills, now the kid still has an addiction. There was a group of people that were going and hitting the schools and selling dope at the schools. $3 bags of heroin. $3 worth of heroin. The kids could buy $3 bags. If you just had $3, you could get a hit. Kids were in the bathroom with the tinfoil. In all those schools. In very affluential areas. We're facing a new day and age of the crack epidemic with these opioids, but it's so much bigger. So much bigger than the black community. And like I said 100 times now, it don't have no color to it and no biases to it. It's looking and eating up everybody. And Big Pharma is eating up everybody right along with it. So when I start talking about these kind of things going on in all our communities, the only thing that I could think about to fight back is opportunities. Love, respect, hope, opportunities. We have to open up the doors of opportunities for these young people. We have to make sure that these young adults, even the older adults, we got to say, hey, I'm here for you. I got your back. I'm going to be consistent with you. You can reach me anytime. Let me know when you need, right? Be here tomorrow. Be here the next day. We're going to stay in constant communication. And we're going to get you a place where you can get a job. You can feel like a human being. You could have an apartment. You could buy a car. You could have a debit card, a credit card. You know what I mean? We'll teach you some financial literacy. Make them feel human again. Because that's what we have to do. They have to see themselves as being human again. Most people start using drugs because they have an issue. Some kind of issue. I don't care if it's from your childhood. I don't care what kind of trauma you've been carrying. Most people go to drugs because of a reason and some don't even realize they got deep-rooted issues, this is the reason why I decided to start using drugs. How do we deal with those? You can't do nothing until you get somebody in a place where they feel like, I can take care of myself now. Do you know how good it is when I give a kid a check, their first check with their name on it? They're like, wow, now I don't know what to do with this, but thank you. You know what I'm saying? So now let me talk about recovery from the criminal justice perspective real quick before I close out. These kids that we work with, most of them have not had any kind of real upbringing and structure and anybody really teaching them a lot of things, right? And so when we get these kids, we try to put them in a place where they understand that they're valuable. You're a valuable human being. So when a kid comes out of the streets to us and we're like, okay, we're going to help you fight this charge, but here's what we need you to do. Got to get you in school. You got to have good attendance. We're going to be checking on your grades, talking to your counselors. You got to behave right. Then we want you to be at these peacemaking and healing circles. We want you on the youth consortium so you can have your voice heard on how to navigate some things in our community through legislation. And then we want you to do this and we want you to do that. We're going to have you speak on this panel. We're going to work with you on how to speak on these panels and get up and speak in front of rooms. And we do all this stuff, but we pay them stipends the whole time they're doing all this work. We give them incentives, right? Most of our money, 75% of our funding goes back into the pockets of the young people we work with because we want them to feel valued, right? And so King County, the city, all that stuff. So what we do is we have, they ask us to bring our kids to come speak at this. Can we have a focus group with your kids? Can we talk about gun violence? Can we talk about gangs? And so, yeah, you sure can, but you got to pay them. They ain't coming to do it for free. You pay a consultant. My kids are consultants. They're experts at the field or else you wouldn't be asking them to be there. So they get paid, right? So we're teaching them you're valued. You have intellectual properties. People want to know what you have up here. People want to know about your experiences on how to stop other people from falling into those traps. And the kids feel empowered, like, yeah. So many times we've had kids say to us, and Les is one of my community ambassadors. He works with me. He's one of my awesome sergeants at arms. Kids will say, man, it was amazing to be in a room and all these people were taking notes when I'm talking. Like, people are asking me questions about they've never had that attention before. It makes them feel valued. Then we start getting them in a place where we're trying to get them, I don't know how many kids we just got jobs in the last 3 or 4 months. A slew, I lost count. I got to catch up on that data, but we've gotten so many kids jobs. Young adults, when I say kids, I'm talking up to 27 years old, so, because I'm a little older. But I'm saying we got so many young people jobs, apprenticeship programs, internships, all this kind of stuff. And so once you get them jobs, they start feeling really, it's just amazing to see. They're standing up straight. They're not looking at the ground no more. The confidence just radiates off of them because they're going to work and they're getting a check. We made it mandatory, so what we try to do is we try to make it mandatory. We're still working on it because we got over about 180, I don't know, so many kids on our list right now. I think 200 plus kids on our list. But we say you have to have a bank account because we want to do direct deposit. We don't want to give you paper checks no more. What? I don't have no ID. I don't have no social security card. I don't have this. I don't have that, right? Well, we're going to figure out how to get it. So we've been making kids go through the process of opening up bank accounts, getting debit cards, doing this thing. And we're doing direct deposit with a whole lot of kids right now. They love it. It makes them feel mature. These are opportunities that we have to keep presenting for people going through recovery. You can't recover unless you feel like a human being. We're so busy focusing on the addiction, let's focus on the person. There's an addiction in that person, but let's focus on the heart, the mind, and the soul of that person. We have to uplift them and put them in a place to feel human. We have to humanize them. Because if we keep talking about the addiction, that's all that's going to be on the forefront of their mind. And that's what they're supposed to be fighting. Instead, I'd want to say, I want to empower you. You're powerful. You're important. You know what I'm saying? You've been out here hustling all your life? Okay, that means you have a business sense, right? You've been able to survive through these systems out here and been able to make it to this point where you're at right now, right? And I see you got a little car out there, so evidently you hustled enough to buy a car. So let's talk about that. And let's use the talent that you had to develop on your own out here in the streets to survive, and let's flip it and make it a positive thing for you. And let's use it in a positive way. And let us show you how to survive and use that talent in a positive direction so you can be successful on this side. My goal is to create 100 entrepreneurs. That's my goal through my organization. Right? Well, I think we got 2, 3 right now. I started a transportation company with 2 young men. I'm going to tell you real quick, and I'm going to close. I got 5 minutes? Am I down to 5 minutes? I'm fine? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the story of this young man, 2 young men. One of the young men came to me. I was working with I seen a group of young men in my community, and I kept seeing them every day. Like, for like a week straight, I would see these 3 young men, and they'd be sitting in the lobby of our building on their phones. And I was like, so I would say what's up to them, shake their hand or whatever. I didn't know none of them. I knew one of them, actually, that from when he was little. And I would come up, talk to him, say what's up, whatever. And I thought they were there for another program or seeing somebody, or meeting somebody, or waiting somebody. Then I see them the next day. Hey, what's up? How y'all doing? Whatever. It's like the 3rd day, I was like, why are you guys in the lobby every day? What are you guys sitting here for hours at a time? What are you doing? They said, oh, our phones don't work, so we're using the Wi-Fi. I was like, oh, okay. So what are you guys doing, though? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you guys have been here for like 4 hours and 5 hours every day for the last 3 days. What are you doing? Nothing. Nothing? I got something for y'all to do. Meet me on this day at this time at my office, and you're going to sit down and you're going to talk with me and a group of people for 2 hours, and I'm going to give each one of you guys $30. Now, what I found out they were doing is they were on their Wi-Fis. Later on, I found out they told me they were on their Wi-Fi on their phones trying to figure out how to hustle, trying to find some licks to go, trying to go come up, trying to go make some money, rob, steal, whatever, right? We use the word licks. We're going to go hit a lick. So that means we're going to go steal something, rob something, steal, sell something, whatever, right? And so there's a hustle that the kids had been doing for the last couple of years. It's kind of dying down now, but they say, yeah, we're dealing with the Russians. So what they would do is the Russians would buy, different products from the stores from them for half price, and then they'd ship it back to their country and charge triple the price of dog food, cat food, just stuff that you would never even think that somebody would hustle and sell and could go steal to make money. And these guys were making like $300 or $400 sometimes off going and stealing stuff that you wouldn't even think people would buy, And so it was like, yeah, we're working with the Russians, baby food, diapers, whatever. And so it was crazy. Like the Russians would give them a list of stuff they wanted and how much they quantity. And anyway, so this is what they were doing. So when I found that out, I was like, wow, okay, so your guys' issue is, number 1, you don't have no direction. Number 2, you have no kind of hope of doing anything. And number 3, you need some money, right? So let's figure this out. So they came. So one of them came to the meeting I asked the 3 of them to come to. One of them showed up. He comes to the meeting. We did a peacemaking and healing circle because we do these all the time. We do peacemaking and healing circles. So this peacemaking and healing circle was one of the first ones I did. This is almost like 3 years ago. And so I had grabbed some OGs, some old school gangsters, and I grabbed some of them and I brought them to the table, and most of them had just got out of prison. Some just been out 10 years, some been out 2 years, some been out 5 years, some been out 12 years, and I grabbed all those cats, and I had a group of young men from the community, and we sat down in a circle and we talked about our experiences, and I put questions out there, and so it would be the OGs feeding into the YG, the young gangsters, the YGs, right? And so we're feeding, and we're just giving them knowledge, and we're talking, and we're having dialogue, and it was powerful. It was a powerful thing. And so we did that. And this young man was part of it. And since that day, that young man connected to me, Community Passageways, and he'd been rocking with us. So then he would go back into his community to where his friends are, where the other couple of young men were at. And like 3 or 4 months in, I've taken this young man all over this county, different county. He's spoken here, he's spoken there. He's having pictures with the mayor and the governor. And so he's posting stuff on his social media. And he's coming back and so all of a sudden, he shows up with his other 2 homies. They come with him one day, a few months down the line. They's like, hey, man, hey, Coach Dom, can we talk to you? We wanna rock with you, man. Like, I don't know what you've been doing with him, but he be coming back smiling and happy all the time and always talking about all this great stuff he just got through doing. Now, mind you, this kid that I'm talking about that's doing this great stuff was sleeping on the floor of the dope house up the street, his uncle's dope house. His mom's a heroin addict. He don't know who his dad is, and then when he found out who his dad was later on in life, he found out his dad was a bum downtown, heroin addict, living downtown homeless. That's his life. So his uncle and his grandma have been raising him his whole life. But his uncle's an alcoholic, drug addict, and tries to sell a little bit of drugs and then lets people sell drugs out of his house to survive. So now there's 10, 15, 20 people in a 2-bedroom, so he sleeps on the floor. And he had been sleeping on the floor in an apartment up the street from our office for like 3 or 4 years at that point. And he was a doorman. So whenever somebody knocked on the door or whatever, he had to get up and come and he did the door. Now, while he's living in those circumstances for those months that he's with us, he's going back to those circumstances smiling. Because I'm giving him a little stipend. I'm taking him to go speak on panels. I'm taking him in environments. We went out to Olympia. I mean, out here, I'm in Olympia. We took him, we go to the Capitol, go have a meeting, and the governor came out and talked to us, and he was just like, man, he's looking around like, this is incredible. I never seen, he's just amazed, right? Still going back to those circumstances and talked about how hard it is to go back to those circumstances, but smiling and bragging and talking about what he just went through. The confidence level of him was shooting through the roof, and he was seeing something new and something different and something exciting and seeing himself in a different light. So when he got back to those people, his friends, they're like, we want some of that. So when they come to me, they're like, can we rock with you? I'm like, yeah, I've been waiting on y'all, right? So the other young man I'm talking about comes to me. We start working together. He starts showing up. This young man wouldn't crack a smile, wouldn't laugh, wouldn't smile. This dude, I'm like, dude, how are you mad all the time? I've never seen him. You just wake up like that? We're all laughing and having a good time, eating, and I'm taking all of them out to eat. We're going and doing different events, speaking on different panels. He'll speak and he'll talk and he'll come, but he's serious all the time. I'm like, this dude, and mind you, he's involved deeply in the gangs. And he was one of the cats that you did not play with in the streets. He was one of those dudes that will shoot at you or shoot you in a minute. This was that guy, involved in a lot of violence in our community. And he kept coming around. So one day he says to me, hey, man, I can't come to the meeting because I got to go to court. At this point, he didn't know that I was out to fight cases. This is at the beginning stages, and I only had fought a few cases at this time. And I said, what do you got court for? He's like, well, I'm facing 3 felonies looking at prison time. I was like, facing 3? What are your felonies? So he's running this felony. Each felony that he had was just hustling. He was sleeping in cars and all this stuff. He had bought himself a nice little Lincoln Town car, and he was sleeping in his car and stuff. Or if he could sleep on somebody's couch or whatever, homeless kind of thing. But he's still out here hustling, trying to make money, ends meet every day. And every crime that he had, it wasn't violent. It was just trying to steal stuff, right? Mind you now, he had a lot of violence in his history, but he just didn't get caught. And when he was in his juvenile days, he got caught for a couple of violent things. But in his adult years, he hadn't got caught. So I said, okay, I'm going to come to court and help you in court. But I could just start seeing that something different about this kid. He's really sharp. And I just got to break through this barrier and break this wall down. So I said, I'm going to come to court. He's like, you're going to come to my court? I said, yeah, I'm going to come to court. I'm going to see what's going on. I'm going to talk to your attorney. He's like, all right. I got 10 people to come to court with me and said, come on, we all going to court for Kayshawn. I walked in the courtroom with 10 people from the community, a couple of volunteers, a couple of my homies. We're going to go support this kid in court. When we walked into the courtroom, he was in front and sitting down. He turned around and looked, and he almost smiled. He almost smiled. But he looked back, he's like, you came? He's like, and you brought all these guys with you? He was flabbergasted that we showed up at court. And I found out later, he said, I've been going to court since I was 12 years old. I've been in and out of courtrooms since I was 12. He was 20 at the time when he told me this. He was 19 or 20 at the time when he's telling me this. I think 19. And he goes, I've never had anybody ever come to court with me. Every case that I've ever had, every time I had to walk in the courtroom, so then I had to think to myself, so you got this little boy, 12 years old, sitting in a courtroom by himself, being a victim of the criminal justice system, being a victim of his upbringing and the people that were supposed to be raising him. He's been sitting in courtrooms by himself. You feel me? So when we showed up, it broke that wall and that barrier down. He was so excited, but he was so, he just couldn't show it. You know what I mean? Because he's never was able to express himself. Nobody's never been there for this kid. I fought his case. Took me about 9 months. I got all 3 felonies dropped down to misdemeanors. And it took me 9 months to do that because I had to go up the food chain. They tried to give us a deal. I didn't take that first deal. They tried to give us a second deal to drop 2 of them. I didn't take the second deal. And so by the 3rd felony that they tried to keep, well, we've given you a good deal. We dropped 2 of them. We're only going to keep 1 felony on them. And I said, why? Why keep 1 felony on him? And the answer that I got back was, because if he messes up again, we have that felony on him, we could drop the hammer on him. I was like, really? I'm going to ask you again, why? Give me a better reason than that. And expand on what you just told me. I'm not taking that deal. So I went all the way up to Dan Saddleberg, the district attorney's office, and said, look, this is what we're dealing with, right? So I walked out of there with that 3rd one dropped. All 3 dropped down to misdemeanors. This kid through this process is like, man, I'll just take the deal, bro. I'll just take the deal. Man, no. I'm like, no. I'm going to keep fighting for you, bro. And you got to learn how to fight for yourself. You're not going to be a victim no more. His mom on dope. His dad. You know what I mean? This same kid, after we broke that barrier down, kid started opening up to me, trusted me, reached out to me daily, going through all the anger, calling me in the middle of the night. Let me tell you something. We have our own bias on what a victory is, or what success is, or somebody moving forward, or in progress. We have our own bias on what progress is, right? So when I got a kid that been out here shooting people, getting shot at, right, and has anger issues, and that same kid calls me and says, big bro, I started taking him to church with me and everything. Like, I just had this kid around me all the time because I feared for his life. And he called me one day, he was like, big bro, man, you got to calm me down. He would call me all the time to ask me to calm him down before he did something crazy. So that was progress to me. He said, big bro, I messed up. You're going to be so mad at me. I said, what's wrong? He said, man, I didn't shoot at nobody this time, but I shot in the air. I was like, congratulations. Good job. Thank you. You didn't shoot at nobody or shoot nobody, bro. I'm proud of you for just shooting in the air. Now come meet me. Let's talk. Right? This kid was so sharp with the skills he had developed in the streets. His business savvy was ridiculous. He's on a whole nother level as intelligence and intellect. And as I kept talking with this kid and working with this kid, we started getting him jobs, got his apartment, and the other kid that was sleeping on the floor, we got him housing. When we got him an apartment, helped him get an apartment, we got him a couch to sleep on. And all. He slept on the couch. He came back to my office and started crying and said, bro, he's like, I woke up this morning. I wasn't on the floor. It was the first time I slept on the couch in 3-4 years. And there was food because we put food in the refrigerator for him. There was food in the refrigerator. I had to go steal nothing. He's crying. This is what addiction produces. This is what we're dealing with. The other young man, me and him started a business together. We got him a job at the Port of Seattle last year. He's down there working as security guard where the cruise ships coming in and out at, where everybody gets picked up and taken to the hotels and airports and whatnot. He calls me one day. He's like, bro, let me tell you what's going on down here. These people are coming down here, a lot of the Africans and a lot of these people, and these people are coming in vans and SUVs, and they're picking people up and taking them back and forth to airports and coming, and they're making a ton of money. And I've been talking to people, so-and-so, these people were made this, they started out with this, and they made this much money now. They bought 3 vans, and he's excited. He's telling me, he's like, and I got the list of, there's 15,000 people that's coming, and I know he's like, bro, we should do this. He said, come check it out. So I jump in my van. I drive down there to his job one day. I said, I'll be down there Saturday. I drive in. They wave me into the thing. I come in, I pull in with all the other vans. And people start coming up to me, hey, are you going to the airport? I'm like, no. So I was talking to him. I'm like, bro, you're right. He loves cars. All this kind of stuff. I'm not going to go there because we don't have time for that to talk about the contest that he won. We did a Sharks on the Beach contest, and he won $3,500, and somebody donated a car. He started flipping and selling cars, but that's another story. I want you to tell you this, though. So what we did, me and him and another young man that was facing 4 felonies at 17 years old was going to be auto declined and sent to prison as a 17-year-old with adults. I was able to get his auto decline pushed back down to juvie, fought all 4 of his cases, got all 4 felonies deferred out of the system, and he stayed in the community and didn't go do 1 day in jail. I started a business with those 2 young men. We have a transportation company. We have an LLC and everything. Right now, I'm working on getting the insurance. I'm opening up the bank account next week. And we already have a contract and another one negotiating. This young man's working for my company, for a nonprofit right now. He's making good money. Making really good money at his age, 21 now, or 22, somewhere around 21. But I'm saying that's recovery. So I'm going to wind up here. I got 5 minutes. I'm going to wind up here, and I'm going to just close with the fact that we have to roll up our sleeves, and we have to really go do this work at a whole nother level. We can't get comfortable. Once you start getting comfortable, you're not going to be effective. And I know that's hard to take. It's hard to hear because people are feeling like, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing something great. We're helping people. Yes, you are. Thank you. Thank you. But how much more effective can you be? What more can you do? If you really got a heart to really attack this issue at a high level, because we're fighting against multi-billionaires right now that are the new drug dealers. Now drug dealing has a new face on it, and it don't look like me. Now this epidemic got a new face on it, and it don't look like me. You feel what I'm saying? So we have to get the biases out of our head of what a drug dealer looks like now. Shift the way we think of it and see what's really happening. Thank you for listening to me. Appreciate it.